the psychotherapists at LCP, and today I'm going to tell you a few strategies to help your children and teenagers with anxiety. When children are feeling really overwhelmed by big feelings, it's really difficult to get them to think logically. Something really small like misplacing a calculator or a pencil can sometimes send them over the edge. Instead of trying to immediately get them to think logically, you need to connect with their emotions. So again, saying things like, I can see that you're really worried about this. And then when you feel like they're starting to calm down because they've felt and they've been heard, then you can start to offer more logic. The reason for this is that when we're really hyper aroused and really overwhelmed by big feelings, the parts of our brains responsible for logical thinking more or less shut down. So by connecting with the emotion, you then allow them to calm down enough that you can then offer some logic. So the first thing that we want is for our children to always feel heard and feel that their feelings are felt. So one of the easiest ways you can do this is by simply repeating back what you've heard. So if your child is telling you that they're really anxious about going to school, instead of trying to rationalise it and potentially diminish it, we want to say things like, I hear you're feeling really worried. I imagine that's really unpleasant. Could you tell me a bit more about that? And that way you're going to encourage open conversation and a good emotional vocabulary. It's quite common for children, if they're struggling with low self-esteem or any of those kind of concerns, to have what we call negative automatic thoughts. Those thoughts might be things like, everybody's laughing at me, nobody really likes me, and things of that kind. One of my favourite things to do with those thoughts is what I call be the judge. So you need to take all of those automatic thoughts and you need to put them under trial. Imagine that you're cross-examining a witness and you ask them what evidence they have to show that those automatic thoughts are true. Then you put on your judge's hat and you say, now I've heard the arguments for and against these thoughts, what does the judge say? Does the judge think that these thoughts are true? Or maybe they're not so true after all. This tip could not be more simple. And all it is that every day, regardless of how you're feeling, you get up, you have a shower, you get dressed, and you eat something. Typically, this is going to set you up for a much more productive day, even if you start off feeling like all you want to do is stay in bed all day. We've all been in that situation where we feel like we've got a million things to do and that they're all really important. One of my favourite things to do is to write everything down and then to put numbers 1 to 3 by all of the things that you feel you've got to do. Number 1 being the most important, number 3 being the least important. Then you write a new list of all the ones. The ones are the things that you can do something about. The 2s and the 3s are things that maybe you can do something about in the future or you can't do anything about at all. You can essentially discard lists with 2s and 3s and just focus on all of the 1s. Breathing exercises are really important for anxiety because they calm down your sympathetic nervous system. So when we're really hyper aroused, our bodies go into a state of what we call fight, flight, freeze, and that means that everything is geared to fight. So by taking deep breaths, we send signals to our brains that there's nothing to be worried about. And you can do a few variations of this, and there's lots of really wonderful guided meditations online and various apps that you can use. But the simplest version is just to breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, and then breathe out for 8 counts. And I'd suggest doing this about 5 times just to really calm things down. Then you can move on to just breathing in a natural way, but giving some voice to your breath by repeating in your mind, I am breathing in, I am breathing out, and perhaps putting on a piece of music that lasts around 5 minutes and committing to doing this until the end of that piece of music. By the end of the song, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to feel like a new person. This exercise is called Colour My Body with Feeling. And what I want you to do is, if your child is feeling really overwhelmed by any negative or anxious emotions, is to ask them what colour that emotion would be. So say, for example, they say, I'm feeling anxious, and anxious is blue. Then you would ask them to breathe in blue. And as they take a big breath out, they imagine all of that blue and all of that anxiety leaving their bodies. And if this is effective and they take to it well, then you can ask them what feeling they do need and what colour that might be. So maybe they want to breathe out anxiety and breathe in calm, and calm could be a pale yellow. So they breathe out all of that blue anxiety and they breathe in all of that pale yellow calm. One of the best things that you can do for your mental health and your children's mental health is get outside for a walk. The combination of fresh air and a little bit of exercise is going to give you a really good kick of endorphins and dopamine, which is a really happy hormone. The other thing about going for a walk is that it's a really, really great environment to have a non-confrontational discussion about anything that might be worrying you or your child. Often when you're face to face, it's not particularly conducive to good communication, whereas being side by side is a lot less threatening and should hopefully lead to much more effective communication. So those are my tips for dealing with anxiety with your children and adolescents, and maybe even yourself. I hope they're helpful.